in the street side of things.
Take it. How about now? You good?
Nothing. Oh, yeah, a second. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the hold up here.
How's it going, Mike? Joining us. Awesome Moonbird there. Memphis GM. Stream's good now.
All right, I'm gonna try to get back into Twitter Spaces. Exiting, reconnecting the headset.
Yeah, it looks like Ray maybe left the space and probably trying to rejoin. I know we were doing this for a little bit ahead of time just to make sure we were prepared, but you know, I know everything could change when you have to leave the space and jump back in and getting all devices and everything synced up. But I don't know if we want to give Ray a minute just to see if he jumps back in here. Otherwise, I could probably just you know, start off. Sure. So, yeah, I think it's appreciate everyone bearing with us. I know in a perfect world, you know, you just could do this in place and maybe have all of it live streaming just directly on Twitter. You know, but I think with what we like to do, definitely like to show how we're using the tool to kind of come up with and shape some of the discussion and some of the data, the charts, the graphs that we're looking at to kind of, you know, be the basis behind you know, the discussion that we're having here. So definitely like to try to have the spaces synced up with the live stream so you can see what we're doing and hear us at the same time. Definitely encourage everyone to ask to come up on stage and to chat, join in on the conversation and the discussion. If you are following along on the space or on the live stream, you could always pull up any kind of charts, graphs, anything that you might be interested in or want to see on that side of things as well. So I think the one disclaimer is on the live stream, you'll only be able to hear Ray or Clemente or myself, but we'll try to, for any questions that might get asked, try to repeat them for anyone who's only watching on YouTube. But I think the first thing, you know, we were hoping to get into today and just talk about a little bit, you know, just seeing, you know, over the past day, over the past 7 days, you know, even if we kind of pull up, you know, our free site here, you kind of see, you know, a lot of the blue chips, you know, seem to be kind of trending down a little bit lately. So, you know, it's tough to, let me just kind of sort back by floor price here, but we wanted to just kind of talk about that briefly and why we see, you know, the negatives or some of the decline over the past few weeks. You know, we think as always, and, you know, the macro, economy along with, you know, what ETH is doing definitely affects and, you know, is a big factor in what the floor prices are or the ETH price is of some of the NFT projects. So I am seeing
I think I'm in now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, hear you great. Sound good.
All right. We should be good to go. It sounds like you're setting up the blue chip projects here, huh?
Yeah, I was trying to serve it up to myself, but now I'll let you serve it up to me.
All right. Yeah. So Tom started talking a bit about blue chip action over the past few weeks. We've seen a bit of a slide. We'll be showing you a couple of the bigger projects here, and kind of how they've reacted and how they've interacted with Ethereum and the price volatility around that.
Yeah, so at the moment, just have Moonbirds, Mutant Apes, Azuki, and Doodles that are pulled up on the chart here. So, would like to show some of the other projects as well, but unfortunately, right now with projects that have a much higher floor, it tends to flatten, some of the other projects. So, I feel like these are all, either blue chips on the cusp of blue chips. So, it should be a good indicator and a good, good chart to be looking at here to kind of shape the discussion. But ever since I guess the middle of July here, you definitely saw a decline. Across all of these, you saw a little bit of an uptick over the past few days. Which could mean or could be a good sign as to maybe we did bottom out a little bit and starting to see a bit of a recovery. I think that the macro conditions are always volatile. We had a Fed meeting a few days ago, and interest rates going up again. The GDP declining for 2 straight quarters here. So I think those things obviously are a factor here for for some of these risk assets in terms of crypto and NFTs. But I think as we've seen, and for anyone who's been in space over the past year, as ETH tends to fluctuate, whether that's up or down, the ETH price of NFTs tend to go down with it. And then once ETH stabilizes, you definitely see NFTs start to trend back up. So one thing we wanted to show, and something that we hope to build into the site and into this chart creator as we move on, is to include the price of ETH and its action alongside of the floor prices in the charts and the graphs that we're displaying. But for right now, we do have the ETH price open up here in another tab. So both of these tabs right now, just kind of clicking between the trading view ETH chart, which is back, going back to January 1st of this year, and then clicking back into WGMI. This is showing us once again, just going back to January 1st. So kind of the month of January saw, quite a pretty sharp decline of ETH there, kind of traded a little sideways for a bit, between that like 3,500 to 2,500 range. So, I mean, that definitely is pretty volatile action that you see there. Surprisingly did actually see, the ETH price of some of these NFTs did go up, in that time frame. But as we could kind of, see, there's definitely been, of these climbs, which I think tend to coincide with, some of the sideways action that we saw on ETH. Yeah, right. I don't know if there was anything, kind of like we talked about, with the Fed minutes, the Fed meeting that occurred recently. We think that definitely led to a bit of a decline in the price over the past few weeks or over the past month here. Definitely nice to see, things trending back up, at least over the past few days, in terms of floor price across these blue chip projects.
Yeah, definitely. As Tom said, as ETH is volatile, moving up or moving down, NFTs tend to react negatively in terms of ETH volume. And as they stabilize, the NFT ETH volume will go up. But as ETH is increasing right now, you're seeing the floor price of some of these blue chips, maybe Mutant Apes, if you can look at the project page, while the ETH value is dropping, your USD value is still kind of increasing. And you see, as the floor kind of dropped off a week or two ago with ETH going up where they intersected, it's kind of like where the highest point of volatility was for ETH. And now it's, the USD value is now, trending higher than the ETH value in terms of relativity.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely, I think a lot of people still tend to look at NFTs and price everything in USD value. So, yeah, I think, it'll be interesting to see if that trend breaks or when people really just start to think of everything in terms of ETH. But yeah, I can definitely see that kind of cross that you see here in terms of floor price. The USD floor price, taking a sharp increase, and that definitely coincided with, the rise in the price that we've saw in ETH, over the past few weeks here. So this goes back to July 11th. And if we kind of go back to the past month, July 11th was almost this kind of almost near near the bottom that we saw there, and then with the sharp increase in ETH, luckily over the past the past week or so here, that kind of has led to what you're seeing here with the ETH price, or the ETH floor dropping a bit, but the USD floor continuing to go up there.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting as well with the mutants, going back on the Project Explorer page, is the spread between the offers and the floor. As the floor price of mutants has been kind of coming down, the offers haven't necessarily been following it. The spread is kind of closed in a bit.
Yeah, and spread is something that we just added recently to the site, and something that we're hoping to track a bit more here. So, just for anyone who is newer, or just because we haven't actually explained it yet, spread at the moment is just the difference between the floor price and the best offer that exists currently on the project. So right now, the floor of Mutant Apes is 17 ETH. The best collection offer, at least on OpenSea, is 16.15 ETH, which gives us a 0.85 ETH spread there. I think just an hour ago, I believe the best offer was actually 15 ETH. We do see. I think that a higher offer came in here. Definitely nice, and we're definitely looking for additional ways to make use of this spread, display it a bit differently, and just try to provide as much information and data as we can around it. So I think this does, it does tell us a lot, and it's. I think, Ray, you were hoping to discuss a little bit about just kind of the difference between the buy side and the sell side of NFTs a little bit more, and how this spread can and this data can kind of be useful and help you make the best informed decisions.
Yeah, definitely. As NFTs grow and the number of traders and active wallets grows, you're going to have more activity in the space, and you're going to have more traders coming in. And I think we're going to see more of a buy side, sell side kind of marketplace, where collection offer and floor price kind of converge on each other, as you see in traditional stock markets. I think OpenSea allowing collection offers is really kind of the catalyst for this. Other marketplaces have had collection offers in the past, but the number of users on OpenSea is just a higher number, and it's going to really introduce people to the offer versus ask side of the NFT market. And we use OpenSea currently for our offers. We could pull other marketplaces in, and we may do so in the future, but for now it's tough because other marketplaces allow flagged assets to be traded on collection offers. So you'll see lower collection offers on LooksRare and X2Y2 potentially than OpenSea, due to the discount that is kind of priced into those assets that may be flagged and you can't sell on OpenSea.
Yeah, definitely a great point. And I just wanted to pull up, the chart creator here, so you can see the floor and the offers, in the same graph here. So I think this is something, we looked at this a bit last week in terms of trying to identify potentially a good time to buy, or when a project might have bottomed out. I think as you do see that floor kind of converge or get a bit closer to whatever the best offer is at that time, and as long as that spread isn't increasing, that could be a good hint or a good indicator that, there's heavy buy interest or buy pressure on the project, and people are looking to get in and aren't, reducing their offer price substantially against the current floor. So I think just trying to keep an eye on the floor data, the offer data, and the spread that we're displaying. And on WGMI, we now have best offer. We have the spread. We allow you to see, how those have trended over the past week or past 2 weeks here. So that's as far back as the data that we've been storing goes right now. But definitely excited to start building a bit more around some of this data and trying to figure out the best ways to provide insights around it. So hopefully everyone finds that information useful. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we wanted to talk about here, or if you think it's cool to jump into the next one.
Yeah, that sounds good. Why don't you reset the room, Clemente? Anyone who joined us, welcome. And Clemente kind of let you know what's going on over here. Awesome. Thanks, Clemente. I think next we're going to jump over to Damien Hirst, the currency. There's a big news item with this project this week as there was a burn deadline on Wednesday. So a brief background on this project. Damien Hirst released this project last year. It was 10,000 works of physical art that were also backed by NFTs. So the 10,000 NFTs were sold and each one correlated one-to-one to one of these pieces of art. The NFT holders could then burn their NFT in exchange for the physical art. There is a deadline this Wednesday, the 27th, where that claim period is now closed forever. So the final supply looks to be 4,851 NFTs and 5,149 physicals. So about really close to half and half, with the physicals beating out the NFTs by a hair. So the way it works now is the physical artworks that were tied to the NFTs are going to be physically burned IRL in real life by Damien Hirst. And there's a lot of speculation knowing him and his style of art that it's going to be done in some rather spectacular way that's going to attempt to catch news. So there will be another interesting catalyst for this collection in the future. I personally wasn't heavily invested in the space when this project dropped. I know that you were, Tom. Do you have any thoughts on this project in general?
I mean, I know of hype. There was a ton of buzz, a ton. Yep, sorry about the cough. Didn't want everyone to have to hear that. I know there was a lot of buzz, a lot of hype around the project. With some of these things, it was great to be able to jump in and to be able to mint one. I forget, with some of the other. I forget exactly where I was, what was going on, or how or why I might have missed it. But that I was able to jump into, or that I was able to buy. But definitely interesting to kind of hear and read, his thoughts, and appreciate him, owning and keeping the 1,000 NFTs and deciding to burn the physicals. Just trying to show his belief, in the digital art or digital asset kind of space. I definitely love to see that. I think, it's. I like to think I would have made a similar decision if I did have one. Would have probably like to hold on to the digital copy. One thing that was a quick aside, pretty cool though, with the Fidenzas, definitely nice, where you were able to claim a digital piece if you had, or you were able to claim a digital, and Tyler Hobbs signed those and kind of had them created, send those out to holders. But I love this, this kind of mechanic, and this interesting kind of way of handling it, just trying to let it be limited and kind of finite there, and forcing owners to kind of make a decision on which they'd I think person would have held on to the digital instead, but curious what your thoughts are there, Ray.
Yeah, it definitely would be a very tough decision. It kind of goes to NFTs versus traditional art, just the convenience of being able to potentially liquidate an NFT versus a physical Damien Hirst is, a pretty big factor in my opinion. If I'm going to be investing that much in a piece of art, I mean, I'm not really an art collector, but I definitely have become more appreciative of art since I've been in the NFT space. And I think many people have kind of leaned the same way, which is great for the art world. But yeah, personally, I'd almost go with the physical, even though I just said that, because I think that these are very cool, and it would be very cool to, you know, have one of these pieces from that artist, and knowing that it is tied to this NFT, even though it is physical, it kind of provides a little bit of extra, you know, personal value there. I know that you opted for some physical fidenzas. I don't know how much you appreciate, you know, seeing them around your house when you're kind of walking around. If that kind of is one of your more treasured pieces of physical art.
Yeah, I think it's tough. You know, you have people that come over and you want to kind of show off, you know, some of the art, some of the things that you've bought, you know, and try to allow others to see that as well. You know, it's I think as the world and as everything becomes a bit more digital, though, you know, it's definitely nice, you know, with different metaverses or different, you know, galleries that exist online and everything else. I mean, it is kind of cool to be able to show off and I hate the word flex, you know, but to just be able to kind of show, you know, what you own and what you, you know, the art that you like and the art that you enjoy, and being able to do that with people across the world versus just, you know, some of your closer friends or some people that, you know, friends or family where I think I appreciate looking at the fidenzas in person a bit, but, you know, other people, they're like, oh, that's cool art. You know, it looks nice. You know, where'd you get it? Who did, you know, they don't really know the whole story around it. So I think having that digital piece, you know, and the same with the, you know, the Damien Hirst, you know, the currency. I mean, I could have that, you have that hanging up in your house and you might have, you know, 100 people come over the course of a few years. And you unfortunately might not have people who recognize it or are familiar with it, you know, but to be able to show that off, you know, in your digital, you know, in your digital gallery or your digital metaverse, digital worlds, you know, I think that there's a lot of value there in terms of where technology is headed and where the space is headed. So, you know, I think being able to buy art that you like and that you enjoy and that you appreciate, you know, there's, you know, there's a lot that, you know, there's a lot of benefits to that, you know, but I think at the same time, you know, making sure you have stuff that you do like, but at the same time, people do recognize it and are familiar with it, you know, and are able to talk about it, maybe share their pieces and stuff with you as well. You know, I think you get a lot of those, you know, those interactions, those benefits exist more in the digital world than in the physical world, at least right now, you know, and where I live, you know, in South New Jersey, where I'm not going to be having many people over who are really familiar with the art or the pieces that I might be hanging up in my house. You know, so I just think that that's a big reason why I would have opted for the digital piece personally. But I think it'll be interesting to kind of see where the floor, you know, what happens to the floor from here. I mean, you saw, you know, a pretty big drop, you know, in the a week or two ago, you know, and started to see that kind of bounce around and stabilize a little bit over the past, you know, past few days, and a nice little uptick there. So, if we throw on, you know, the offers, we could kind of take a look at how those are doing here, and kind of zoom into, you know, July 13th, which is when we started really tracking those offers. Let me take listings off. You know, so you can see floor increasing a little bit here, the spread, you know, kind of going up as the floor goes up, you know, so I think, yeah, you know, I think we could kind of see these start to, I mean, the digital supply was pretty much just cut in half, right? So you'd have to think from here that you do see the price go up quite a bit. I would imagine, you know, I think the demand is probably still pretty high for the piece in the space, and in the fact that, you know, 4,850 or I guess 5,149 NFTs were burned to exchange for the physical artworks. I would imagine, you know, just simple supply and demand, that the floor price will go up and continue to do so as we move forward. Hey, Illustrious, how are you?
Yeah, that's definitely a good kind of middle ground. You know, get a custom print really nicely done, and hang that. I definitely see kind of like the value there. You kind of going best of both worlds. Was it a tough decision for you at all, or were you pretty much set on the NFT from the beginning?
Yeah,
Awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah, for anyone who's watching the YouTube live here, just that bit of silence there because we don't have the audio coming in from the Twitter Spaces. But we had Illustrious come up on stage here, and he just let us know, it was kind of a tough decision, but he had Damien Hirst and decided to keep the digital version. I definitely, I think that's likely what I would have done as well. Of this space of digital art, with digital assets, and where the space is headed. So, I think that was personally think that was a good decision, and I don't think either way, to have minted one and to still be holding on to it, you're not regretting anything at this point. But I do think, I do think that'll continue to be a good decision as we move forward. But I'll pass it back over to Clemente, let you kind of reset things a little bit.
So I'd like to actually get you guys' perspectives on this, because this was a feature we rolled out this week as far as the spread between the collection offer compared to the floor. And it's been something we've kind of been talking about, but essentially Other Side Owl was asking, how do you guys view that spread going down and going up? Is it something that makes you more bullish if the spread is closer together, meaning there is a little bit more liquidity, or it's a potential bottom? And how do you view that?
Yeah, definitely. I can take this one. As the spread and the floor kind of approach each other, and it kind of depends on almost the volume of offers as well. But as they're approaching each other, you've kind of found almost like a level of support where, the offers aren't well below the floor. There isn't, that big gap where people will continue to undercut as opposed to taking an offer. So you kind of almost have found a price that you can kind of maybe work up from afterwards. When you see that large gap, that there's potentially more room for that floor to fall before, a potential buyer ends up buying an asset. So, if you have an offer at 14 and the floor is 17, that no one's really willing to buy at 17 necessarily. They could undercut, 17, 16, 15 before someone finally maybe takes an offer for liquidity, or a buyer decides to pay a little bit more to purchase the asset.
Yeah, I think definitely great points there. I mean, there's a lot that I think we're starting to think about. This isn't a new concept, but I do think being able to start tracking and displaying the data a little bit more, and being able to kind of keep track of the trend, things perform there. So I think you could see the spread drop a little bit if an offer was and then does that offer get replaced or backfilled? How many offers exist, and at what level? So kind of how thick is that floor on the buy side of things? So just trying to I think on WGMI we've been a lot more focused kind of on the listings, and on the sales. But how do you factor in some of those offers and and try to figure out and play and display more data on the buy side of things in the market, to truly kind of set some of those prices, and try to understand what the data means and what it's showing. So I think it'll be interesting to see how things continue to trend, keeping an eye on these spreads. But I do think what we've kind of said in the past is, as the floor tends to approach the best offer, and if you don't see that best offer continue to dip, it could be thought of as a bit of support at those prices there. So, but definitely something to keep an eye on, especially when you're looking at just the spread chart. What exactly is this telling us? What is this showing us? I think trying to build more data and insights around that, to kind of support some of the new hypotheses we might make in the space, is something we're going to be doing heavily, I think, as we continue to move forward here. But definitely appreciate the question. But I jump into next, the most recent Art Blocks curated drop, which occurred, I believe, 2 days ago. I think it was Wednesday, when we were talking through, or when that drop occurred. So I have a few of the charts up here now, Ray. I don't know if you wanted to talk about it a little bit briefly, and then we could kind of talk through and pull up a few different views here on the live stream, just to show kind of how it's performed so far, and maybe compare to the most recent drop here as well, or the previous curated drop.
Yeah, definitely. So this is Ki Aankhen by Fahad Karim. It's a generative art. It's cityscapes that are generative. The description for the project, for those who aren't aware of it, is that it's an exploration of otherworldly cityscapes in the visual aesthetic of Fahad's distinct style with pen and paper. I believe the supply on this is 500. It was a Dutch auction that started at 10. It ran down to around 2 where it sold out. I know that me and Tom were both looking at this, and we really enjoyed the aesthetic, and we're looking to mint it whenever volume came in, especially given that art blocks have been very hot, especially curated. We'll talk a bit more about that and kind of how that may not be the case anymore, but we missed long story short, we missed the drop and kind of just had to sit on the sidelines watching price action since then. Looking at this Project Explorer page, what jumps out at you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's unless you're on top of the project, it's tough to go back and try to look at what it minted out at, but I'm pretty sure it minted out at around 2. So, I mean, typically with Dutch auctions, I think everyone's kind of sitting on the sidelines, and you wait until you see those like pending transactions start to tick up on Etherscan, and once you start to see movement there, I think that's when everyone starts to jump in, but I think definitely unfortunate to see that it did mint out at around 2 ETH, and the same day it minted out, the floor was already down to 1.6, and all the way down now to 1.3. So definitely something that's a little unfortunate there. I mean, you saw this a little bit last summer around some of the curated drops where there was a lot of buzz, a lot of hype around Fidenzas, around the Dreams project, around a lot of these other projects where it seemed like if you were able to buy, you were almost definitely making a profit. But they kind of switched from just a normal open mint, which had crazy gas wars, to this Dutch auction model, and ever since then, you definitely have some of these mints where flippers tend to get wrecked, or to it doesn't turn out too well, so obviously, if you did mint out at 2, or you bought in at 2, like I said, definitely unfortunate to see how quickly the floor has dropped since then, and a lot of people who have accepting WETH offers here, and trying to get out, and trying to cut losses. But I know one thing that was kind of interesting, if you floor high to low here, just kind of seeing some of the highest floor traits at the moment aren't necessarily the rarest traits of the project. So I think in general with art blocks, and just generative art, or art in general, it's very subjective in terms of the traits people like, and the aesthetic, and what people find appealing. I mean, you definitely tend to see different spirals. If we open some of these here and you kind of take a look at them on OpenSea, some of these are definitely pretty nice, pretty cool to look at. You kind of see those spiral designs in the sky there. pulling some of these up and opening them a little bit bigger. I mean, I definitely, I personally like the art. I thought it was pretty cool. I was a big fan, and pretty unfortunate that I wasn't able to mint. I was pretty upset that I did miss that. But now looking at it, it could be a pretty good entry point here to possibly jump in, considering where the floor is. So it's a total supply of 500, which is nice to see, kind of a lower number there. Not a terrible unique ownership percentage here too. So, looking at 73% unique ownership, I think that's, pretty nice to see. Just saw a new sale that popped off there. So thanks for whoever's tuning in. Probably like the really great alpha that we're providing here. But did see a sale just pop off. Yeah, I mean, this is interesting to kind of look at the spread there too. So, seeing that spread, it is pretty high to kind of see, going from 1.3 with the best offer only being 1.01. Could be interesting to try to pop an offer a little bit higher than that. Might be something that you could get accepted there, and to get in at even a lower entry point than what the floor is right now. Yeah, I think, definitely caution everyone to make sure, if you're buying into these projects, I definitely encourage you to do so because you do believe and are a fan of the art of the artist, because you do intend on holding these for the longer term. I think sometimes the days of these quick flips, definitely, you just want to be careful. It almost seems like the best course of action is to kind of let it min out and then just keep an eye on secondary as a few days pass, and you just kind of see, what happens, what happens with the there, just kind of seeing how quickly the floor has dropped. Yeah, definitely interesting to look at, and if we pull up, what was the, I think it was running moon. Was that the other, that was the most,
I was going to say we can transition into kind of how these projects, like the art block season, may have peaked a bit, looking at, this drop and the last curated drop. These were almost like 100% win rate on, you buy and you can flip right away for a decent profit. And now, like, looking at it, we may have kind of hit the blow off top for all these.
I think, usually good to throw squiggles on here as well. So I think usually, I mean, squiggles were moving, pretty nicely. I guess if we go back, I mean, it was probably June, right? I think it was around NFT NYC where we really saw, a nice kind of uptick, in the price of squiggles. And I think, any of the drops that kind of occurred in this range, you see squiggles moving, you see some of the other art projects moving. It almost seemed like we were heading for another squiggle summer here, and we definitely still could be. I think starting to see some of these decline that could be, the same thing that we talked about earlier on the call, with some of the greater macro trends and the volatility of ETH over the past few weeks here, could lead to the dip here. But I mean, you look at the running moon, which is, this orange line here, along with, the most recent drop, and kind of seeing how those trended against, squiggles, kind of all following that similar trend there. So it'll be, I think, interesting to keep an eye on, but definitely a word of caution for anyone who might be jumping in some of these curated drops. It seems like, unless it's a very well-known or hyped artist, or very, art that you're very excited about or that you really like, it almost seems like the play, at least as of the past two curated drops, would be to kind of hold off during the actual mint, and buy in on secondary.
Yeah, definitely agree. And it'll be interesting to see, kind of the reaction on the next curated drop. Now that we have kind of a sample size of 2 in a row that have kind of followed this trend, and the general generative art market has been trending down a bit. It'll be interesting to see when that next curated drop happens, how that is going to play out. Maybe take some of this advice and see if we can apply it there. And like we were talking about earlier, you said we may be approaching some sort of NFT ETH bottom if ETH can stabilize. We've been very volatile for these last few weeks, and that could contribute to some of this price action. And, if ETH does stabilize, it definitely will be worth watching these projects that, may have dipped a bit, and maybe a very good entry point to kind of get in before any kind of correction.
Yeah, great point. I mean, Ray, were you did you mint the Running Moon? I feel like you were, you had an eye on it. I don't recall what those sold out at or minted out at. But it looks like the
Yeah, I was
floor after that first day was 4.15. I feel like it minted out at a bit lower than that, if I recall.
Yeah, I believe I did mint that. I believe it minted out in the low to mid twos. Don't quote me on it. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember. And I flipped it the first day. I think I sold in the high threes. So that did have like that initial run, but I mean, it tapered off significantly over the following week, as you could see. And it's probably sitting right around what it minted out at now. But again, I would need to double check what that minted out at.
Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. Well, definitely wanted to talk about that drop. And yeah, I think the next item we were hoping to get into a bit here was the the Ledger Genesis, the market pass that dropped recently here. So let me, Clemente, I don't know if you want to just reset things once again, and I'm just going to get the charts set up here. If you wanted to just connect with everyone and reset for a sec.
Yeah, well, we are still doing the weekly market chat here. We're about 45 minutes in. We're uncovering the latest crypto and NFT news and how these two are affecting each other, how you can use WGMI as well to get those additional insights to hopefully get ahead of it and maybe see what might be going on in the future. We are live on Twitter Spaces, but we are sharing and streaming as well on YouTube. So if you go to the top tweet, you will see that if you can click on a link there, it will our YouTube stream where you can see actually what we are looking at and talking about. And lastly, if you do have any thoughts or you'd like to contribute to the conversation, feel free to request to come up, and I will let you come up here and you can share your thoughts. If you guys want to take it from here.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Clemente. Appreciate you doing that. So with the the Ledger Genesis pass here. So for those that don't know, Ledger is the most secure platform for artists and brands to release their NFTs, where Ledger customers can securely connect through Ledger Live and clear sign the transactions. For first access to exclusive collaborations and Ledger hardware, software, and services, you can become a Ledger Market Pass holder. So definitely sounds like there will be exclusive drops, exclusive benefits, exclusive features for those that are holding this Ledger Market Pass NFT. One of the kind of obvious comparisons I think that we've seen is comparing the Ledger Pass to the pre-mint pass that dropped a few months ago. So just taking a look at that on the screen here, I'm going to go off cam so that the screen looks a little bit bigger on YouTube. But you can see kind of how pre-mint performed, from mint leading up to that Moonbird's drop, and kind of hit that peak at around and close to a 3 ETH floor there. And then I think there was a lot of hype, a lot of speculation. I mean, the floor is still held up relatively well. It's almost, 0.71 right now, but, still above what the mint price was. I think pre-mint, the solution, the tool, I mean, it solved a huge need, I think, for collectors, for creators, to be able to handle and solve, the allow list problem and take care of that in a more streamlined fashion. I know a lot of users were very excited about and are excited about the dashboard functionality that they have coming out here, pretty soon as well. That I think Mulligan teased recently over the past week. They had a pretty big update there, but definitely want to focus a bit more on the Ledger Pass. But just kind of wanted to show how the premium pass has done since its mint. You could kind of see it did hit that peak a bit there, and has been trending down a little bit since then. But if we take pre-mint off this chart and just kind of focus on the Ledger data that we have available to us right now over the past few days, gonna kind of hand it over to Ray right now and just talk a little bit about maybe some of the long-term upside. And then I know a popular or well-known fund, swept the project recently over the past few days here too. So Ray, what are your thoughts on all that?
Hey, thanks for setting that up. Yeah, so it definitely is a comparison to pre-mint outside of each's individual utility. I know pre-mint's allowing you, access to their dashboard and, inbox, calendar, everything they have, and Ledger is going to offer you, one of their physical devices. But in terms of like the heavy value I see with both of these different brands, companies, is their ability to partner and, use their clout in the market to obtain these sought after projects, having big projects seek them out to partner. So holding these passes should give you solid access to good projects going forward. And I know the meta right now may be trending away from the free projects, but I mean, we've seen these free low quality projects kind of dominate the meta for a long period of time, and I think we're due for a shift once we kind of get out of that season. And I think that Ledger and Premint will both kind of provide you, a higher quality and tier of access to these projects. It's kind of up in the air right now with Ledger, and there's a couple of reasons I like Ledger here as a kind of speculation, maybe over Premint, and a few reasons are that Premint is a season pass at this point, so as time goes on, it makes sense that the utility of the pass will kind of decline and, what value's left. And the Ledger pass, is lifetime. I don't know how sustainable that is, but that's how it's, being billed right now. So you're going to have a little bit more upside in the long term with Ledger. And I think there's just not enough information about kind of what they're offering. They haven't really, specified partners or any kind of, big Ledger market announcement. And I think that kind of announcement will really drive, interest into the pass and price action, like coming out of that. We've seen a little bit of hype early, it minted out at 0.3 and immediately started running. Ryan Carson's fund, 121G, they did a very big sweep on that first day of, public mint. So it'd be interesting to see, obviously the floor, you can see it peak a bit there. And I think mainly due to that large sweep and then speculation following it. I wish that Ryan would do a little bit more of, dollar cost averaging into these large purchases. I think maybe a lot of traders are kind of seeing it as, he buys in, it kind of creates a gap immediately in the spread between buyers and sellers, and they're kind of using it as an exit point, and you see a bit of a dip afterwards. But that's another story, and that could be debated for a longer period of time by us. But talking about Ryan Carson, it would be interesting if you bring up that 121G fund on WGMI, Tom.
Yep. So yeah, good segue there. I mean, you tend to see, it was pretty well known. He did a big sweep of Moonbirds, I believe, on July 1st. That was their first, their first kind of buy-in that they did there. So Moonbirds, the Ledger market passes, 86 of those. The Tiger Bob NFT Genesis was another sweep, and then the Tableland rigs, something else that they did there. So I think, interesting to see kind of the what they've brought in so far and what they've purchased. I do think this total cost is off a little bit right now, so we'll need to take a look at what might be going on there. But you can kind of see the total value, I guess, of the NFTs that they bought right now. So if you take a look at their portfolio chart, you could see obviously right now, based on current floor prices of the projects, it's very heavily skewed in the Moonbirds direction because of their current 19.5 ETH floor. But if we were to hide the Moonbirds, you could kind of just see how things are allocated across some of those other projects. So you do see that 121G, 58% of their portfolio, excluding Moonbirds, is now in the Ledger Market Pass Genesis Edition, 20% in Tiger Bob, 13.99% in Tableland rigs, with 7.7% of the two wallets here that were pulled in, that is currently held in ETH. So, nice to see kind of how this looks, and definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on. We did go in and create a wallet group to be able to quickly pull up the fund here. We have his, both of the wallets that they have tied in, that have been buying and transferring assets in between the two. that we're looking at right now. But I know he did recently decrease entry into the fund to 10K quarterly from, I think, previously $72,500. So yeah, definitely interesting. I'm curious if he was just hoping to make it more accessible, or if he just had a hard time finding that were interested in buying or jumping in and investing at that much higher price point there. But it'd be interesting to keep an eye on what they've been sweeping and what they end up jumping into next here. Like Ray said, as we've seen, some people tend to buy into some of these sweeps where the play might be to, if you bought in earlier, we're able to mint some, maybe sell into the hype or some of the buzz that might be generated by that sweep, try to sell top or catch the top after that sweep, and then maybe buy back in if it is a project you're interested in longer term, after the correction there and after things tend to come back down. It is nice to see a little bit of an upwards trend here over the past few days. I do think that's something that will continue as more information and partners and those kind of things are released around the project. But yeah, definitely, nice to kind of take a look at some of those trends and, be able to pull up, the fund and see how they've done so far in the first month of operation here.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When we were prepping for this and talking about this earlier, I ended up buying another Ledger Pass, looking at kind of where it's at versus pre-mint. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to be this bullish on it, I'm going to need to end up buying another one myself at this point.
Yeah, we could, definitely pull up the Project Explorer for a second here. I know there's aren't really many traits to be looking at here, but you can still see, some of the listings, some sales. Looks like that floor is up to 0.51 right now. Best offer of 0.47. So spread is, is relatively thin between the two. So I think a little bit more of upwards buy pressure, and it seems like not too many listings that are kind of flooding the market right now. Only 625 or 6.25% of these are listed, relatively strong, above 75% unique ownership percentage, which I think is always a nice sign to see, with projects. Yeah, could be a good buy or good time to jump in here, after that sweep was done. And, as you start to see some of that slower, steadier growth trend, that we are seeing here. So that was pretty much what we wanted to talk about with Ledger. We had one more thing we wanted to do here. I know we're at 156. Definitely happy to jump into it, but curious, what you guys think, if you'd like to continue going here, or where you're at.
Yeah, I'm good to continue. As long as you're good, Clemente, maybe one more reset and we can kind of jump into it.
We are live on YouTube as well as Twitter Spaces. We're using WGMI as we talk about recent market news and some movements along different projects. We are using the WGMI tool and charts to get a little bit of a deeper insight at what that might look like in the future, to uncover and get a deeper look at what may unfold in the future. We are also doing a giveaway. If you'll see that second pinned tweet, if you tag a friend and you end up winning, that friend will get a free WGMI premium pass, which will give them access to do the exact things that we're doing on this YouTube stream. So if you want to watch that stream, be sure to click on that pinned tweet and it'll take you there, and you can get an inside look at what we're looking at, as well as seeing Tom and Ray's faces, as we all want to see that as well.
always love showing my face for the masses, unfortunately. So now we'll jump into Coolman's Universe. This is a project that, full disclosure, me and Tom have both invested in and have, kind of followed along since almost the beginning of their journey, looking at when they minted back in December. Like a brief history, Danny, Coolman Dan, is the founder of this project. He has a 2.6 million subscriber YouTube channel where he does animation and different art and storytelling. And they jumped into the NFT space with Coolman's Universe last December. It minted out and was a fairly popular project and really started to run in January of last year, pumped to about 2.5 ETH in February. And it's kind of been a slow decline since then. Knowing this team and being around their events and their Discord, you can tell that they are a Web2 team that really wants to invest in the Web3 space. They definitely have a lot of passion around Web3, and they definitely see it as, you know, see it as the future of content delivery. So kind of a little bit of background on the entire like project there. A more detailed history of their NFTs would be, you know, they had the Coolman's universe release. Then there was a surprise airdrop a few months back. It ended up being kind of similar to the Azuki Beans, and like it was kind of like a mystery box, and there were like quests around it, and it eventually revealed into a Jar Dude NFT, which is a burnable NFT that will provide, you know, different utility down the road. You burn it for a mint, you burn it for X, Y, and Z. And then after that, they had a planned release of the babies that we'll talk about a little bit more in detail, but that minted, you know, a few weeks ago. And now we're kind of sitting at almost all-time low for the project. And we'll kind of talk a bit about our thoughts on the price now, what's led here, and kind of where the future like is going for this project. Tom, why don't I kick it off to you? Like, what is your overall thoughts about this kind of project and ecosystem?
Yeah, I think appreciate that setup there, Ray, and kind of have a few different views up on YouTube here. I mean, I wasn't familiar with Coolman Coffee Dan before jumping into this project, but definitely something that caught my eye, you know, December-ish of last year when it minted. And I'm now someone who's pretty heavily invested. You know, Ray and I went to their event up in New York, like I believe you mentioned, and you know, really cool vibe, really cool people, really cool community. He's created these characters, he's created this world, and it, you know, to me, just thought it was a very fun, exciting kind of story to back and to just kind of be invested in. As you can see, I mean, leading into kind of February timeframe, I mean, there was a really nice run up to over 2 ETH of the floor, you know, but sadly it's been kind of nothing but almost nothing but a decline ever since. It's a few just kind of higher level metrics, seeing the unique ownership percentage so low. I think that could be something that is a little scary to some. You know, I think what's happened there is a lot of owners of the project have taken some of these sharp dips and declines as an opportunity to try to DCA and try to jump back in at a lower entry point, you know, compared to when they might have originally jumped in. You know, if you jumped in during some of these pumps that you could kind of see, you know, earlier in this year, kind of looking at some of these dips, pretty heavy dips, as an opportunity to buy back in. So that, I think that's what's contributed a bit to the unique ownership percentage being so low. You know, it is somewhat nice though to see a pretty low percentage listed. You know, I do think the floor relatively thin, back to 0.3, you know, back to 0.5, back to 1. So I think that's something where it'll be interesting to see kind of where things go from here. You know, there was a few different catalysts, a few different announcements that were made, over the past few weeks and months here around a TV show that is coming out. You know, I think there was a lot of hype around, you know, is it going to be a Disney show? Or, you know, Coolman Coffee Dan's been open about the fact that he turned down, you know, a deal with Nickelodeon a while ago, who I think wanted, you know, a bit more rights to the project than he was willing to give up, and that he's taken meetings with Disney and everything else, which is great to hear, you know. But so I think a lot of that and a lot of, you know, those discussions have led to some of the speculation that you saw, and why you did see some of these sharp kind of pumps or increases here. But I think they've tried to do a good job of like curbing and managing some of those expectations in the Discord. But I think, as we all know in this space, you know, imaginations, hype, buzz can definitely run wild, you know, and you could see where a community or people within the community might take and screenshot a picture of, hey, he took a meeting with Disney. That must mean, Disney's buying the IP, or there's going to be a movie or a show on Disney Plus, which, I think they've tried to manage those expectations as good as possible. And, it's kind of like what you see with a lot of these other projects where, where is that bar? And I think Zeneca wrote a really good article over the past few weeks just talking about what are those expectations, and is it impossible for projects to be living up to them? I just think as newer projects are released, it's almost like each one is kind of with each one and with the success of others, tends to set the bar higher and higher. So it's it's definitely tough for projects to try to balance managing hype, managing expectations, trying to keep those in check while generating enough hype and buzz around future drops, and trying to get people to mint into those and buy into the project. I do think there's a few things that they could have done a bit better or differently ahead of the drop. I think a lot of people seem to disagree with, the mint price of their secondary project. And that was something that people were very vocal about within the Discord. I think that was, something that the team definitely seemed like they were listening to, but it didn't seem to affect or alter their plans in any way. But they came on Spaces, and within the Discord, they definitely owned up to that, but I think, anyone who might be coming in and potentially calling the project a cash grab or anything along those lines just has, they're not that into or aware of kind of this community, this universe, this world that they're, that Danny's built and that they're trying to do here. I mean, they're trying to transition that following that they have into this space. And I think, it's definitely been difficult for them to do so. And I think I still remain very long-term, bullish and excited about the project here. I do think, sorry about that. Could be definitely a good time to be looking into buying in. But that's just kind of my higher level thoughts on, where things are. I think, between the jar dudes, between the babies, between some of these secondary projects, it's tough to try to get an idea of what catalysts might be here that could increase or could really help the price activity out. With TV shows, it's great to hear that they're doing one. It's very, very awesome. I think it's kind of what Danny's ultimate goal was, but at the same time, I think that's going to be a pretty long process, and, definitely usually see some heavy NDAs around TV shows and everything else. So it could be a while until we see, some news released there. So definitely curious, where, that Ray, and, anything you'd like me to pull up next here.
Yeah, definitely. So I own some, and I'm also watching this. So, I mean, we talked a bit about issues with the baby's mint. Essentially what happened was the details around the mint, it was initially slated to be a supply of 20,000. 10,000 would be available as free claims for all Coolman's holders, and 10,000 would be available for purchase. With the purchase price of 0.195. There was a good amount of pushback by the community as this price compared to like the main collection, like didn't really line up with that, 20% kind of standard that has been, set by kind of mutants and apes, where, that secondary collection of 20K generally sits in that, 20% ish range, give or take 5-10% of the original collection. So, holders and people looking to get into the project are saying like, well, wait a minute, like this isn't going to work. And I mean, there was pushback, and the tough part as a project creator and founder is like, at what point do you need to like listen to this pushback, or at what point do you think you're delivering enough value to warrant that price? And it's definitely a tightrope to walk as that project founder, because you need that funding to generate additional hires and acquisitions, or pay your current staff a longer runway. But in the end, what the market dictates is the price is what you have to charge. So, after like some pushback, and after, a bit of a stagnated mint, they lowered the price 0.089. They were able to mint out about a third of the 10K, and then they, allowed the claim. So it's about the 13K max supply on the babies, 8,000 claimed right now. And like this was like the main like kind of negative catalyst, I think, that's kind of like driving Coolman's like steady decline. And the reason I kind of wanted to bring up this FUD, and like Tom said, you know, they're working on a TV show, there's NDAs, like there's not going to be much news. So like kind of looking at this all together, like there's not going to be any catalyst. There's already kind of negative FUD around the project. Like this is kind of the time where you can really, you know, invest in one of these collections and, you know, see a turnaround in the long term. This by no means is a short-term flip, but it's something that I'm going to continue to watch. And as soon as I see that volume like begin to tick up, I'm probably going to sweep a number of babies and maybe a few of the Coolmans based on what the prices are currently.
Yeah, I think, you know, definitely, you know, really great points there, Ray. I mean, you look at this project and like with anything in the space, I mean, if you are a long-term believer, if you believe in the team, if you believe in the art, if you believe in the world, the universe they're creating, I mean, as our real world continues to get more digital, I mean, if they're able to convert and transition the, you know, that huge following that he has into the NFT space, I mean, there's obviously a world where, you know, this 0.2 floor starts to get back up to and approach, you know, anywhere that it was, you know, the kind of levels that it was at recently. But, you know, it's definitely something that I would recommend kind of keeping an eye on and just trying to see, you know, where things go from here. I think there's possibly a town hall, I believe this weekend, which, you know, we could get some higher level information about the project. You know, and I don't want to be fueling any fire, any speculation by any means, but, you know, I think with some of these, with a TV show, you know, they're not really announcing, or they haven't announced or can't announce, you know, who's going to be doing the voice acting, who's going to be the distributor of this, you know, of this show. I should have had it, you know, readily available. I forget, you know, who's behind the show. I know they've done a lot of other popular animated shows in the past and have a pretty good track record. You know, I think it was the potentially the production company that was announced, but not necessarily, they haven't announced the distribution yet. But definitely, you know, you look at a project and try to figure out, you know, I think it has a lot of the pieces. It has the formula, you know, and it just could be a time where, you know, jumping in now at this floor price, at this low point, you know, could really pay off dividends in the long run. And I think, you know, and I want to dive a bit deeper, you know, before we talk about the project again, into the unique ownership percentage to try to understand, you know, I think understanding unique ownership is important, but also understanding like how many of these owners have held from the beginning, or how many bought in recently, you know, and have swept recently and kind of increased their bags and increased their positions in the project. You know, so it'll definitely be interesting to see. I think definitely a few missteps along the way that they've acknowledged, they've kind of owned up to. And I do think overall the team is strong. You know, the art is pretty strong. I think the artist is strong and a really great person, and someone that I definitely believe in and want to be supporting. But at the same time, you know, you make enough mistakes and it's kind of like, you know, could end up being death by 1,000 cuts. So it could be something where it's, you know, I don't want to go ahead and compare it to necessarily to Cool Cats, but I think you've seen kind of a similar thing that happened there, how their game was rolled out and the FUD that was around that, and how they weren't able to necessarily deliver initially. Things got pushed, reveals got pushed. You know, it just could be one of those things where, and sorry for my dog who wanted to jump into the space right now, you know, but could just be one of those scenarios where it's just one thing leads to another and you just continue to see that decline. You know, but I just feel we're not talking about Cool Cats at a 3 ETH floor here. You know, we're talking about a 0.2 ETH floor, a much more tolerable kind of entry point, where it definitely seems like a project worth keeping an eye on, worth kind of, you know, just following their socials, maybe jumping into the Discord and seeing what they're about and learning a bit more about the team. But yeah, just something that we wanted to just talk about a little bit, just as a project that, you know, maybe made a few mistakes along the way, but, you know, it's easy to talk about the blue chips or projects that are either doing well or, you know, have gone up recently, but to maybe bring some light to some of these other projects where, you know, a few positive pieces of news or a few positive, you know, catalysts here. And, you know, you could definitely see this, you know, pretty thin floor, you know, yeah, it could kind of tear through that pretty quickly there. So definitely something I think we you know, we wanted to talk about here. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else, Ray, or if there's anyone, you know, a few different few people who are in the audience now who haven't been. So definitely appreciate you all jumping in here and jumping on board. I don't know if anyone is interested in hopping on stage and chatting for a little bit. I could go to about 2:30 here, but definitely just Ray, I don't know if you have anything else, or if we want to just check if anyone did want to jump in and just hop on stage talking about Coolmans, or anything else that's going on. Definitely see a few birds, see some oddities out there, see a few doodles out there, a few punks. Definitely feel free to jump on stage, request to come up and chat with us if you want.
All right. So I'm not going to lie. I did not do much research on these. The extent of my experience was I signed up for a pre-mint and someone tweeted about them, and I went to their mint page and found out I was whitelisted, and I minted and flipped. So I was in and out of it without doing a ton of research, as you know, I'm just so busy. It's funny, like when you take a job in Web3, you expect you can, do a lot of, investing, or like you're going to be so tied in, you're going to be able to, have all this information and, manage your portfolio. But you find out that most of the time you're working, you're missing these drops, you're missing all this, additional information, and it makes it a little bit tough sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, I can say the same. I my full-time job and hope that was going to lead to, even more time in the space, and it's definitely led to more time on the site. But in terms of being able to invest and continuing to research, I think that's something that's fallen off a little bit. But I think that is something that our newer offering and something that we're working on, is hopefully make that a bit easier for us as we move forward here. But yeah, these are definitely pretty cool. I am not familiar, or wasn't familiar with them up until now, but appreciate you bringing them up, Clemente, and talking about them. Definitely something I'll have to look into a little bit more. Something else that caught my eye was the Bose House of the Dragon partnership here. I'm curious, any Game of Thrones fans out there, if anyone is either excited for the show or not, in the next month or so here. I think I'm definitely going to be giving it a chance, but kind of see what happens. It might be tough to recreate that early hype and success that Game of Thrones did have, but I think I'm confident they'll be able to hopefully pull off a pretty cool story here. But that was just something that caught my eye as I was scrolling through their their Twitter feed.
Yeah, definitely. Is anyone requested to come up, Clemente? If not, we can maybe just riff a bit on kind of the oddities and the progression this week after their town hall. Yeah, while Tom sets that up, I can talk a bit about like the high level approach. Like, I know there's a little bit of FUD around oddities and the nesting that, oddities have, 1.2 floor right now, I believe, down from 4 pre-reveal. So there's been a lot of FUD and some negative price action there. Midweek, Kevin and Justin, they had an impromptu meeting where they, it might have, a lot of people might have missed this, but they really said like, hey, we have the capital to, and we plan on supporting oddities. And they made it sound like that wasn't maybe the original plan, but they've pivoted after seeing kind of this reaction, and that oddities, at least they're willing to say that, oddities will be, more supported than potentially they had planned originally. And so when you look at oddities versus like Moonbirds in terms of, price ratio, it's definitely way off that 20% I was talking about earlier. And, it may be another project worth looking at, an entry here, maybe throwing in some low offers and potentially getting a very cheap entry into the proof ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. As a heavy Moonbirds owner, I mean, I was was able to I was airdropped 14 oddities and bought another one.
Congrats.
So yeah, thanks. I have a bunch of those as well. But if you compare, like we were talking about, you compare kind of Moonbird's floor to Doodles there. Almost a 2x floor, and then you kind of see the oddities and the duplicator price, is kind of in the same range. I know it flattens out the chart a little bit, so I think we know where Moonbirds and oddities, or Moonbirds and Doodles both are, but trying to compare, just look at the oddities versus the duplicators, it's interesting to kind of see those prices be tightly aligned, considering the projects that they came from and or the projects that they're kind of coupled to or derived from. I think there's a ton of hype and excitement around Doodles and the duplicators. I think it's a really cool concept, a really cool idea. Love the, kind of brand and the direction that they're heading. And I definitely think, we could talk about Doodles and duplicators likely at another time, but I think in terms of, the oddities and where they're at right now, it definitely seems clear. They are part of the bigger plans of what Proof is and what they're doing over there, and what they have planned with Project High Rise. At the moment, oddities have the same kind of benefits as the Moonbirds. You get access to all the same Discord servers or Discord channels, and there will be some kind of entry, some kind of opening to High Rise for oddities holders. So it's definitely interesting to kind of keep an eye on that. I feel like Justin's been, I don't want to speculate too much, but there's just been a lot of talk and mention about just NPCs and RPG games. And I could kind of see these oddities as some kind of just maybe a background character or something, in the world that they're building. They talked about their different positions and their size, and there's a reason why they have full bodies and they're not just kind of chest up. So that's definitely interesting, and obviously can speculate forever on what these might be and what they might become. I think personally the art has grown on me quite a bit. I know a few people commented on this yesterday, but I think if you kind of go to my profile and you kind of click on my pin tweet, my wife put this together, but when you look at the oddities that are right next to the Moonbird they were derived from, I just feel like this is kind of the way they were meant to be, kind of viewed, and the way they were meant to be displayed. I know there was a bit of pushback in terms of, should the traits have been derived from the original Moonbird and everything else. But, I just think when I look at this view, I just think they look so cool next to the Moonbird that they were kind of based off of. So, I think the art has, grown quite a bit on me. I think, Gremplin's art, I wasn't a huge fan of Toads, when they first were released, and that was something, that art definitely grew on me quite a bit. But when you look at, a 19.5 ETH floor for Moonbirds, an almost 80 ETH floor for the Proof Pass, to think of being able to gain access to their Discord, to their network, to their community, and potentially their greater plans of Project High Rise, which we'll learn a bit more about. I believe they said August 30th, which is what their proof of update, when they'll really be going into the deep dive on product, on their future plans. And I think really, Kevin always talks about swinging for the fences. And I think we're really going to get the first hint at, what they're swinging for and what they're aiming for. So I definitely think the price, this feels like a very good entry point for those who aren't currently invested in this ecosystem, to be able to jump in to gain access to the Discord. Looking at a 1.2 floor right now, just seems like if you have the ETH available and you're looking for something to buy and you don't have any exposure, anywhere between like a 1 and a 1.2, 1.3 ETH floor just seems like a really good, strong entry point for the Oddities project.
Yeah, it might be useful to maybe we can bring up the Project Explorer page if you can get to there pretty quickly, um, and look at potentially that spread chart to see like how that's been trending, and then maybe some of the trait floors. I'm kind of interested if there's any decent gaps there on that trait floor gap page we have, because we were setting this up earlier in the week, doing a little bit of research. Are we going to talk about oddities or not? And I ended up buying one. I think a couple other members of the team ended up buying them, like as we were talking about it, like talking ourselves into being more and more bullish on it after looking at all the metrics. So there's definitely one I'm excited about, kind of seeing the news events surrounding them. I just find it so hard to see these going beneath 1 ETH. It's just like almost like a very safe bet. I've heard a lot of people saying, hey, well, I don't see them going over 2 ETH because that's where cryptodes are right now. And like, that's, Gremplin's like main call to fame in terms of, a PFP 10K collection.
Yeah, I think, it's easy to look at the toads. I think, a very popular CCO project, right? And, just trying to figure out, well, where does that project go, or what is the, everyone's always interested in utility. I mean, what is the utility? What are the benefits? What's going to come out of that? When you look at, at this point in time, sorry for bringing that up again. At this point
Congrats,
in time, yeah, thank you. I think at this point in time, if you could buy potentially 2 oddities for the price of a toad, it seems like I'd much rather go the 2 oddity route, for some of those benefits of just, being able to gain access to the Discord, to that community. You have access to the mods, to fellow Moonbirds holders. Kevin and Justin and the rest of the team hop in there occasionally as well, in the Moonbirds channel, in the Oddities channel. Yeah, I just think when you're looking at anything in that kind of less than 2 ETH price range, depending on kind of budgets and everything else, it just seems like a very, very strong buy, and something that I'd definitely be looking into. I'd love to buy some more. I feel like I have enough exposure at this point in time, though. But we couldn't take a look at a few of the traits and just try to see. I know underfoot is kind of a popular I think a new interesting trade that they added to the project recently. That was kind of a newer trade that didn't exist, obviously, with the Moonbirds. We haven't seen their feet, so we don't know, what's under them. But yeah, the underfoot was a trade.
That's the hard hitting analysis we're looking for.
Exactly. I know that's what that's why everyone's here and tuning in. The anatomy of our PFP projects. Yeah, so just taking a look at some of these traits. So right now this is sorted by floor gap, high to low. So floor gap is essentially the difference between the floor listing of a trait and the second listing of that trait. So background dust, I think backgrounds are typically a trait not many people put much stock into. But you could see
I think that applies to the legendary ones that have those sparkles.
Okay. Yeah, so if it is a trait that kind of singles out some of those one of ones or those unique trait assets, definitely makes sense to be looking at that. But there's a lot here, so you can see what the floor is, what the second highest listing is, what the gap is, the number of assets with that trait, the percentage, and then along with kind of how the floor has changed from the previous day. You could pull up the trait floor history here. You could pull up the trait listing history as well to kind of see how many are listed with that. So this is definitely a nice feature where if you're looking to buy, you're looking to rarity shop or trait snipe. this is definitely a great way to be doing it. But at the same time, you have to weigh. Would I want to buy an underfoot diamond, for 4.5, or you could buy three floors. Which is always that debate. Do you go with the floors? Do you go with the rares? I think typically it makes more sense to be jumping into the floors, as there's potentially more room to run. I think it depends on the the volume and the kind of liquidity of the project and how it's moving at any point in time. But yeah, I think we've talked about oddities enough between last week and this week at this point. But definitely was something we wanted to just call out again and kind of keep an eye on here. As a project we're pretty heavily invested in right now. But definitely, yeah, I don't know if we want to hand it. And anything else from you, Ray, or definitely encourage anyone to pop up on stage and chat with us again if interested.
No, I think we've talked about enough oddities this week to make us blue in the face. But I'm bullish on it. You're bullish on it. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. If anyone is requested Clemente, you can let us know. Otherwise, I think maybe we can sign off and kind of give everyone just heads up on the giveaway. And we want to thank everybody for being here, obviously.
I definitely appreciate everyone tuning in. Always appreciate you jumping into the spaces. Hope on the live stream as well. I think, I definitely appreciate everyone's time and feel free to mark us on your calendar and hopefully tune in again next week. Definitely something we're hoping. And I think we'll continue to improve and get better at, the more that we do. Appreciate everyone joining us today, and hope everyone enjoys the rest of your Friday and has a really great weekend. So thanks so much. Anything else from you, Ray?
Nope. Basically what you said. Thanks for coming out. If you have any questions about our tool, feel free to DM me, Tom, or our direct Twitter or our official Twitter page. We'll answer any questions you have, help you through anything. If you have any feedback for us on the show, feel free to tell us how great or how terrible we are and what we need to work on. This is our second one. We're planning on doing this weekly, and we're taking any and all feedback to make this the best possible experience for you, the users. That being said,
I have one more question. Ray, do you even lift, bro? Got that bench behind it.
Thanks, guys. WGMI. We're going to make it.
Have a good week.